which has long been one of the world's thorniest problems, and it's vexed American presidents ever since the establishment of the Jewish state in 1948. But Hamas's brutal October 7th attacks and Israel's brutal response in Gaza have taken things to a whole new level. So where do President Biden and former President Donald Trump stand? Joe Biden has a long, deep history with Israel and with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. As a member of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, he met with every Israeli prime minister and raised a record amount from pro-Israel groups. But while publicly emphasizing his support for Israel's security, Biden also backed steps towards Palestinian statehood. Donald Trump's early forays into the Israeli-Palestinian thicket were vague, to say the least, with Trump pitching himself as, quote, sort of a neutral guy. But Trump eventually started towing the Republican Party's pro-Israel line, saying that, quote, the bond between the United States and Israel is absolutely, totally unbreakable. Most of all, though, he pitched himself as a master negotiator and a possible peace agreement as the ultimate deal. As president, Trump entrusted the Middle East portfolio to his son-in-law, Jared Kushner, and repeatedly sided with the Israeli right. He moved the American embassy to Jerusalem, stopped funding the UN Agency for Palestinian Refugees, and he recognized Israeli sovereignty over the Golan Heights. But Trump's so-called peace plan would have made a viable Palestinian state impossible and was immediately rejected by the Palestinian Authority. And the Abraham Accords, which normalized relations between Israel and several Arab states without progress toward Palestinian sovereignty, left Palestinians feeling betrayed. When Biden moved into the Oval Office, he continued Trump's normalization policy while also restoring funding for Palestinian refugees and trying to steer Netanyahu away from weakening Israel's Supreme Court. After October 7th, Biden's old instincts kicked in. He coupled full-throated public support for Israel with a behind-the-scenes push for moderation. Eventually, he came around to calling for, quote, an immediate ceasefire. But when Israel did little to check its military campaign, Biden finally threatened to cut off some U.S. support, pausing the delivery of thousands of bombs and artillery shells. After October 7th, Trump's first move was to criticize Netanyahu and claim Israel was, quote, absolutely losing the PR war. He has also blamed the entire crisis on Biden. But the Trump campaign has refused to reveal the candidate's views on the war itself, whether he supports a ceasefire, how he would handle hostage negotiations, and whether he supports a two-state solution. His advisors, meanwhile, have unveiled a plan for Israel to annex the West Bank and described a Palestinian state as, quote, a super bad idea. Biden is mired in a lose-lose situation over Gaza, with Republicans increasingly rejecting his tightrope approach as not pro-Israel enough, and a significant portion of Democrats continuing to see it as too pro-Israel. While Biden remains publicly committed to a two-state solution, getting there has never seemed more difficult.